The first rule about losing your soul is that pleasure makes you blind to the cost. I learned this at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, standing naked in my penthouse bathroom with blood on my hands and Jessica's name carved into my chest. My own handiwork, though I had no memory of the blade. The mirror reflected a stranger wearing my face, scarred and wild-eyed, while somewhere in my fractured mind, a dozen other versions of myself screamed for control. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the woman who destroyed me so beautifully that I begged for more. 3 months ago, I thought the worst thing that could happen to a 52-year-old was watching your wife fuck the tennis instructor in your own bed. I was wrong. The worst thing is meeting someone who shows you paradise, then makes you pay for it with pieces of your sanity. Aaron Prescott made the introduction. Board member at 3 Fortune 500 companies, the kind of man who collected rare wines and rarer secrets. We just closed the Meridian acquisition, my biggest deal yet, and he suggested we celebrate somewhere that would awaken what's been sleeping in you. I should have recognized the hunger in his voice, the same hunger that would soon consume me. The address led me to a Soho theater from the 1920s, its exterior blackened with age and secrets. No signage marked its purpose, only a brass plate beside the door. Members only. Midnight to dawn. Aaron met me at the stroke of midnight, transformed. Gone was the exhausted executive I knew. In his place stood a man radiating vitality that seemed to pulse beneath his skin. Richard. His smile pierced the darkness. Welcome to Rim. The interior stole my breath. Opulent beyond imagination, gold leaf and candlelight creating shadows that moved like living things. The music wasn't quite music, more like a frequency that bypassed rational thought and spoke directly to the primal brain. It made something deep inside me stir, something that had been dormant for decades. And then I saw her. She moved through the crowd like smoke given form, her presence commanding every room she entered. When our eyes met across that impossible space, I felt the earth shift beneath my feet. First time? Her voice was velvet over steel, the kind that could make a man forget his own name. I turned to find her beside me. How had she moved so quickly? Studying me with eyes that seemed to shift between gold and green in the flickering light. Not young, but age became meaningless when faced with such raw magnetism. She wore power like other women wore silk, and I wanted to worship at its altar. Jessica, she said, extending a hand that sent electricity up my arm. I curate experiences here. What kind of experiences? The words came out rougher than intended. Her smile revealed perfect teeth, sharp as promises. The kind that reminds you what it feels like to truly live. She led me through the crowd, past dancers who moved with inhuman grace, up a spiral staircase that seemed to climb forever. Her hips swayed hypnotically, drawing my eyes to curves that defied logic. The private room she brought me to was lined with antique mirrors, each one reflecting versions of myself I didn't recognize. Younger, stronger, hungrier. Age is a prison, Richard. Jessica moved to an ornate cabinet, her fingers trailing over instruments that looked like the marriage of science and sorcery. I can teach you to break free. How? I couldn't look away from her mouth, full lips that promised both salvation and damnation. She withdrew what appeared to be a modified headset, but the technology was unlike anything I'd seen. Wires connected to devices that hummed with barely contained energy, and touching them made my fingertips tingle. Consciousness expansion, quantum resonance therapy. Her hand brushed mine as she demonstrated the controls, the contact sending fire through my veins. Think of it as unlocking your potential. She moved closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. something dark and intoxicating that made my head spin. Tell me, Richard, when was the last time you felt truly alive? The question hit like a physical blow. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt anything beyond the grinding weight of existence. I thought so. Her fingers traced the edge of my jaw, the touch electric. Let me show you what you've been missing. The headset settled over my skull like a crown, its interior lined with material that felt alive against my skin. When Jessica activated the system, reality shattered. Colors exploded behind my eyelids. Sounds became symphony, and the crushing weight of being a middle-aged failure, simply evaporated. I was 25 again, but better. 25 with the wisdom of experience and the body of a god. When I looked in the mirrors now, I saw a man who could conquer worlds. And Jessica. Christ, Jessica was beautiful beyond description. More than beautiful, she was transcendent, a goddess made flesh, and I wanted to fall to my knees and worship her properly. The session lasted an hour that felt like minutes. When she removed the headset, I expected the feeling to fade. Instead, it intensified. Every nerve ending sang with new awareness. The room seemed brighter, sounded more vivid, and Jessica was everything I'd never dared to want. How do you feel? Her voice was husky, knowing. Alive. The word came out as a growl. She smiled, and I would have killed to see that smile again. Good. That's very good. I walked out of RIM at dawn feeling like I could bench press cars and seduce angels. The effect lasted 3 days, 3 glorious days where I was the man I'd always dreamed of being. I called Aaron immediately when it began to fade. I need to go back. His laugh carried dark knowledge. I thought you might. But Richard, be careful what you wish for. I returned that night, and the next, and the next. Each session with Jessica was more intense than the last, her presence becoming as necessary as oxygen. She introduced me to advanced techniques, combinations of light therapy, sound frequencies, and what she called resonance mapping that I didn't pretend to understand. All I knew was that it worked, and that I was falling for her with a desperation that bordered on madness. My golf handicap plummeted. I closed impossible deals with supernatural confidence. Women who'd never noticed me before found excuses to linger in my office, drawn by whatever new energy pulsed beneath my skin. But it was Jessica I craved. Jessica, whose approval I sought, whose touch I lived for during those midnight sessions. She became my drug, my obsession, my everything. You're responding beautifully to the treatments, she murmured one night, her hands adjusting the headset with a clinical precision that felt like caresses. But we must be careful. The boundaries between consciousness states can become permeable. Her fingers lingered on my temple, and I leaned into the touch like a starving man. What does that mean? I asked, though I cared more about the way her breath felt against my neck than any answer she might give. Sometimes the mind struggles to differentiate between parallel experiences. We recommend no more than 3 treatments per week. I nodded and booked sessions for every night. Jessica's warnings proved prophetic. During the Morrison negotiation, I found myself speaking in an accent I didn't recognize, citing legal precedents I'd never studied. The knowledge flowed through me like water, foreign yet familiar. I won the case, but afterward, I couldn't remember half of what I'd said. The blackouts started a week later. I'd be walking down Fifth Avenue and suddenly find myself in Central Park with no memory of the journey. Once, I came to consciousness teaching a physics course at Columbia. Students hanging on every word of the lectures I'd never prepared. Brilliant work on quantum entanglement, Professor Hawthorne, one of them said afterward. Hawthorne, not Tate. But the episodes only made me crave Jessica more. She was my anchor in the storm, the one constant as reality blurred around the edges. I lived for those midnight hours in her presence, for the way she looked at me like I was something precious and dangerous. The treatments are bleeding through, I told her one night, finding her in her private office surrounded by monitoring equipment that belonged in a government laboratory. I'm experiencing memories that aren't mine. She didn't look up from her screens, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced ease. In the blue glow of the monitors, she looked ethereal, untouchable. Quantum consciousness entanglement. You're accessing other versions of yourself, parallel iterations across probability lines. That's impossible. Now she did look at me, and something flickered in those shifting eyes. Is it? You're experiencing unlimited potential, Richard. Most people would kill for what you have. What I have is terrifying. She stood, moving to one of the mirrors that lined her office. In its surface, I saw not my reflection, but a dozen different versions. Younger, older, scarred, unmarked, wearing lives I'd never lived. You're becoming everything you could have been. Every choice not made, every path not taken. It's extraordinary. The way she said it, with such reverence, made me want to believe her. Made me want to be worthy of that tone. Jessica. I moved closer, drawn by the gravity she seemed to exert. What's happening to me? She turned, suddenly inches away, her presence overwhelming. You're transcending the limitations of single-stream consciousness. You're becoming more. Her hand cupped my cheek, the thumb tracing my jawline, and I leaned into the touch desperately. I feel like I'm losing myself. Or maybe you're finally finding yourself. Her lips were so close I could taste her breath. All the selves you were meant to be. I kissed her then. Or maybe she kissed me. The distinction seemed meaningless. Her mouth was fire and ice, salvation and damnation, and I poured all my desperation into that kiss. She tasted like secrets and promises, like everything I'd ever wanted and would never deserve. When we broke apart, her eyes were darker, hungrier. Careful, Richard. Some doors once opened can never be closed. But I was already lost. The episodes intensified after that kiss, as if Jessica's touch had unlocked something even deeper. I'd wake speaking languages I'd never learned, possessing skills I'd never acquired. My daughter found me playing violin while simultaneously solving quantum equations, neither of which I'd ever studied. Dad? Amy's voice was small, frightened. You're scaring me. I wanted to reassure her, but looking at her, I saw a dozen different daughters, some with different mothers, some who'd died young, some who'd never been born. The boundaries between realities were dissolving, and I was drowning in possibility. I'm fine, sweetheart, I said, though my voice carried traces of accents from lives I'd never lived. That night, I dreamed I was a surgeon saving lives, a concert pianist performing at Carnegie Hall, a professor revolutionizing quantum physics. I woke exhausted, wondering which dream was the lie. Rim became my only sanctuary, Jessica my only constant. During those midnight hours, surrounded by others who'd paid similar prices for transcendence, I felt almost stable, real. But Jessica grew more distant as my condition worsened, monitoring my sessions with clinical detachment that felt like abandonment. We need to reduce your treatments, she said one night, her voice carefully neutral. Your consciousness matrix is fragmenting. I feel fine. The lie tasted bitter. You spoke to me in ancient Greek for 10 minutes yesterday. When I ask you about it now, you don't remember. I didn't remember, but I remembered the way she'd looked at me when I was speaking, like I was something miraculous and terrible. Please. I reached for her hand, desperate for the contact. Don't take this away from me. Don't take you away from me. Something flickered in her eyes. Regret, desire, fear. Richard, I love you. The words tore from my throat like a confession. God help me. I love you, and I can't stop what's happening, and I don't care as long as I can still see you. She pulled away, and the loss of her touch was agony. Love me? You don't even know me. You don't even know yourself anymore. Then tell me, I begged. Tell me who you are. Tell me what this place really is. For a moment, her mask slipped, revealing something raw and vulnerable beneath. I can't. Some truths are too dangerous for fragmented minds. But I couldn't stop. The treatments were heroin in my veins, and Jessica was the dealer who held my life in her hands. Without them, without her, I felt myself dissolving into component parts. The end came on a rain-soaked Thursday in March. I arrived at RIM to find Jessica waiting for me, her usual composure cracked around the edges. The monitoring equipment hummed with unusual intensity, displays showing patterns I'd never seen before. We're trying something different tonight, she said, not meeting my eyes. A full-spectrum integration. It should stabilize your consciousness matrix. The headset felt different this time. Heavier, more complex. As Jessica activated the system, I caught her reflection in one of the mirrors. She was crying. Jessica, what? Then the frequencies hit, and reality exploded. Instead of controlled access to parallel selves, I was flooded with the memories of 100 different Richard Tates. I was the Richard who'd become a world-renowned surgeon, the Richard who'd never married, living alone with his books and regrets, the Richard who'd died at 30 in a car accident that never happened. All of them were real. All of them were me. And all of them were trying to exist in the same space, the same mind, the same rapidly disintegrating consciousness. Through the chaos, I heard Jessica screaming something about cascade failure and emergency protocols, but her voice seemed to come from another dimension. The mirrors around us began to crack, showing not reflections but windows into other realities where other versions of RIM operated under different rules. In one reflection, Jessica was older, sadder, alone in a room lined with photographs of failed subjects. In another, she was younger, more naive, just beginning to understand what she'd stumbled upon. And in the third, she was like me, fragmented, multiplied, existing across probability lines with eyes that held the weight of infinite possibility. What did you do to me? I managed to gasp, tearing the headset away with hands that shook like leaves. Jessica was frantically working her controls, but her equipment was failing, sparks flying from overloaded circuits. I was trying to help you. The integration should have worked, should have consolidated your consciousness streams, but something went wrong. Fix this. I can't. For the first time since I'd known her, Jessica looked genuinely terrified. The cascade is irreversible. You pushed too hard, demanded too much. The boundaries between your parallel selves have collapsed permanently. She turned to me then, and I saw my own fragmentation reflected in her eyes. I'm sorry, Richard. I should have stopped you. Should have stopped myself. What do you mean? I mean, her voice broke. I mean, I fell for you too. Every version of you I've been monitoring, every parallel stream I've been accessing, I've been in love with all of them. And that connection, that emotional entanglement, it's what caused the cascade. The admission hit me like a physical blow. She loved me. All of me. Every fractured piece and possibility. "We're both lost now," she whispered. "Both fragmented across infinite probability lines. I can feel myself splitting, becoming every version of the woman who could have loved every version of you." As if to prove her point, her reflection flickered between faces, young and old, scarred and smooth, wearing expressions of love and loss and desperate longing. I reached for her, but my hands passed through empty air. She was already fading, becoming probability and potential rather than flesh and blood. "Find me," she whispered as she dissolved into quantum static. "In every reality where we might have had a chance. Find me, and remember that some love transcends the boundaries of singular existence." Then she was gone, and I was alone with the echoes of 100 different heartbreaks. That was 6 months ago. Rim vanished that same night, leaving behind only an empty building with no trace that it had ever housed miracles and madness. My attempts to find Jessica led nowhere. She had become as ethereal as the memories that plague me. I've learned to manage the episodes, mostly. When I feel myself slipping into someone else's life, I have anchors to pull me back. My daughter's laugh, the taste of coffee from my favorite deli, the phantom sensation of Jessica's lips against mine in that moment when everything changed. But in the quiet hours before dawn, when the world feels thin and malleable, I can still feel them. All those other versions of myself living their parallel lives. And sometimes, if I focus just right, I catch glimpses of her too. Other Jessicas loving other Richards across infinite possibilities. The temptation to let go grows stronger each day. To stop fighting the fragmentation and allow myself to become everything I could have been. Everywhere I might have found her. Sometimes I wonder if that's what love really is. The willingness to lose yourself completely in another person. To become scattered across every possible reality where you might have had a chance. Last week, I drove past the old theater building. It's been converted into condos now, all glass and steel with no memory of what came before. But as I sat at the red light, I could swear I heard that impossible music drifting from somewhere beyond the walls. And for just a moment, I saw her in my rearview mirror, not my reflection, but Jessica. Whole and real and heartbreakingly beautiful, mouthing words I couldn't hear but understood perfectly. "Find me." I drove home instead of following that phantom vision. But I kept the address, just in case somewhere, in some probability line I haven't yet explored, there's a version of Rim where love doesn't fragment consciousness, but rather makes it whole. Where Jessica and I found each other without losing ourselves. Where the first rule about losing your soul is that sometimes, if you're very lucky and very brave, someone else's love can help you find it again. I'm still looking for that reality, and I suspect I always will be.